Okay, this is our first moon. We're 10 days into it. I took a little while to get into this with Shannon or Scott because of the Year of the Ox talk, but hopefully you guys got it. If you don't, go on Total BS Wellness, get the Year of the Ox talk. Those of you that do buy the course, if you buy the course, we are going to have a drawing for a free chart reading with Shannon and also a free private online session with me. We have a Q&A in there. I've added a bunch, and then there's also another free course that I'm giving you guys as a gift. If you join up the freemium, it will be the 3 different methods of practice that I use in order to integrate practice into my life at any times. Using these 3 different ways of practicing. If I get too busy and I can't fit it in, then I have this other way. And if I can't do it that way, then I have this other way. So go on the site. It's in your membership portal if you join freemium or premium. And I'm also putting out a mediation kind of empathy building under stress course that will be coming out too. Follow us on social media, follow the YouTube channel, like, comment, subscribe, do all this stuff. And again, tell your friends about us, tell your friends about Shannon, get a reading from him. Let's do this. This is Total BS Wellness. Happy whatever moon this is. How you doing?
Hey, dude. Having a little chocolate. I was like taking a little nap.
Ooh.
Yeah, just working on the same things, like feeling really good. I think that I know that in the first 10 days of this moon, I got caught up in my own narratives. Had some interesting meditations about like website stuff mostly. Mm-hmm. But I feel really good about where I came out on it because I'm having a better understanding of like what's important, like why do I want to do it? It can't be just because I want like a whole bunch of people. Like I need to have a theme. I need to have like a reason. Yeah. And I feel it better. I feel a lot better. I've just been reading. I've been getting philosophical. Yeah, so that's what I've been doing. What's been good with you?
Built a laundry room.
Mm.
I started setting up for just some other building around here, but
how did you build a laundry room? What did you do?
Well, I have a laundry room in the back.
It's a tight space. Yeah, it's a tight space.
But I just had to revent it and then put in a new washer and dryer. I got a front loader to where I can, now have the top space to where I don't, did that. Just a little homemaking.
It's all about the front loader.
Yeah, let's talk about this tiger moon. So
let's talk about the tiger. Yeah,
I feel it's all about just chilling out and not trying too hard. But yeah, fill us in, educate us.
Right. So the first moon of the year. I mean, if we're talking about chi characters, just generally, like we're talking about the tiger. The tiger is a sense of power. And it's the kind of power that actually thrives in unpredictability. Mm-hmm. So, of the cycle of 12 of the earthly branches, tiger's like king of the jungle, right? It is the most powerful aside from the dragon. Mm-hmm. So like it's basically top of the food chain. But of course, dragon is like not even in the food chain, right? Yeah. So like that's what gives them the ultimate authority, is that they have this otherworldly quality, where the tiger is like very much in the world and representative of spring. So it's a yang wood energy natively, and its intention is to sort of like spring out, in this really major vitality and major power. But of course, the atmosphere is unpredictable. And so tiger chi is also very unpredictable. And what makes the navigation of any tiger moon, what brings it to fruition, what actually makes it like something that you can work with and like mature it and like bring it along in this kind of gradual way, because you're thinking, if you want to use an imagery of like a little kid, it's like a toddler, that's about to just run around and, get into all kinds of stuff. So if you want to actually cultivate and mature this, there's ways that you can do this, so that when you get to summer, you have like a very mature, responsible, you have maturity and responsibility with the same power, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's when you're getting to dragon, right? So like this idea of like the flow of time from tiger to dragon is the nature of spring. How do you go from power to real authority? Mm-hmm. And so part of how we do that in the first moon is this same idea that we talked about in the 12th moon, which is Ganying, right? This notion of resonance. It should be sort of very easily accessible, the things that we gravitate toward, right? This kind of sense of, and of course it's going to be impulsive in some ways, so our expectations shouldn't be so high. But part of the difficulty right now is that, it's an elemental conflict, right? So the tiger moon that we're in is a metal tiger moon. So the image of a metal tiger is all that power with thoughtfulness and precision mm-hmm. at the same time. And it sounds pretty good if we were all like track cars, if we were all like performance engine racing machines, or if we were all BMW motorcycles, mm-hmm. But we're not. And so that's the biggest problem is that the metal tiger moon can be really helpful in this time, but it can also produce a lot of collateral damage if your motives are just to cut to the chase, right? If all you want to do is just show me, the biggest thing that I talk about right now is like, I tell people, hey, just slow down, go slow. And usually the response is, well, when can I? Tell me when.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that right there, that's the nature of the tiger moon that you're in. It's like, okay, well, if I can't do it now, tell me when. Like, come on.
Yeah.
And so this is the cut to the chase sort of energy. And people all have all kinds of excuses, like, oh, we've been locked up forever. And so the tension is just like unbearable for them.
I remind people to always refer to the great movie, The Legend of Remo Williams.
Remember please.
And he's like, and he asks his master, like, how old are you? And like, this is what we have to realize. Like, we have been locked up for a year, right? In lockdown or whatever, shelter in place. But that's not long.
Right.
It's long for a child. Yeah. But I go back to this whole like little speech where he asks his master, he's like, how old are you? And he goes, for a insect, I'm, this, and he's like, but for a mountain, I've yet to even begin life. You know what I mean? So right. It's kind of like, yes, it does feel like forever, but honestly, and I refer back to like, do you remember when you were a kid and your parents be like, you're gonna have to wait an hour? And that felt like a miserable, and then now you're just like, oh my God, it's been a year. You know what I mean? It's like, it just flies by. So that's also why my heart goes out to, I still have a group of kids that, I get to see every now and then, but my heart goes out to the kids. I can give a crap about us. You know what I mean? It's like a year. I didn't even notice it. I mean, it's literally been a year. I mean, we went in shelter in place around
in March. Yeah, March 15th. Yeah, right around there.
Well, it was like my birthday was on the 13th, right? And then,
I think it was then the Sunday. Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, and for a birthday wish, all I wanted to be was left alone. I just wanted some uninterrupted time to myself, and so.
So you're the cause.
So, oh God, I was like, thank you, right?
Yeah, that was right around the time I moved into where I'm at now, a week before shelter in place started, and it was just like, wow, okay, here I am.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, exactly. Would have been terrible to float around.
Yeah, but so many people are, they're wanting to just go. It's like, when can I? It's like, hey, that's the mentality that makes you make bad decisions. Impulse control, like we talk about.
True.
Like control, it's time to grow up. Like, I was talking to this life coach that I work with, and we were learning some grappling, and I was like, don't skip a step. If I feel that you skipped a step or you rushed it, I'm out. I'm done, and you're choked. And so it really taught him to slow down and be methodical. Right. And slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And you can skip steps when you're around a bunch of novice. You can skip steps when you don't. It's hiking on the edge of a cliff. You don't just be like, it's no time for willy nilly. Just mindful steps every move.
Yeah, and it's good that you mentioned that. That's a lot of. I think that what I've been saying to a lot of people is that you can't think that the big edit is over. The big edit was never just going to be over. Once we get to the metal ox year, we still have these kind of editing processes to go, and that can make spring feel like a little bit of like start and stop. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that the cut to the chase sort of chi about the metal tiger can actually be incredibly useful if we turn it inward, right? Okay. If I'm constantly trying to cut to the chase in everything that I do, again, I'm going to create a lot of collateral damage. And the worst kind of collateral damage I can do is hypocrisy, is this idea that I can skip a step because I am actually just interested in the chase rather than the actual lead up to the scene where the chase actually makes sense. Like I'm just trying to pursue some, grand plan. And then, of course, it will fail. Like it won't be able to actually hold up if that's the model that I'm following, where I'm just looking for the reward. And that is what the calendar, or the outlook behind this tradition would call hypocrisy. Like you don't actually have a foundation. And so it's just going to be flimsy and then fall apart. And then you're going to be perhaps being in a place of grievance or externalizing and never really turning the gaze inward, which would definitely be the invitation of the metal element and the kind of cultivation aspect of it is like, okay, like I really do need, this would be an excellent time if you haven't done any kind of editing, which is almost impossible to imagine, right? If somebody just like spent the entire metal rat year just like living in a fantasy of like, all I need is one or two things, and then we're all going to get back to normal, and then we can continue doing what we're doing. As we mentioned in the Ox Talk, the invitation in this moon is to really get real with ourselves and understanding that the edits that we've gone through and what we've lost is not just real and permanent, but it's just like it's actually maybe we could look at that idea of these losses as actually being a just response and move from there rather than persisting in the idea that, in the fantasy that we can return to like what we've had before. That's really, really difficult. That would be really difficult this year to, it's very strenuous. And that level of strenuousness breeds this sense of hypocrisy. You're not just being with your current condition, you're living in a fantasy realm and then trying to, shape the current conditions back into the box. That's just not how life works. And that's not reflective of the opportunities of the time. So you'll tend to skip these steps and you'll be in this sort of place of consistent grievance and externalizing rather than sitting down and getting real with yourself and edit, maybe taking out more things, to the corner, like getting very candid, with yourself in terms of like what your actual motivations are. Like, do you really care about what you do, or are you just constantly looking for the reward of it? What kind of sacrifices are we willing to make? Yeah. So, that pace of, slow is smooth, smooth is fast is like, that would be very valuable for this moon for sure.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we can get there. I know personally,
we will get there.
Yeah. That's been the whole, I guess vibe of this right now. It's like, it's like you do what you need to do, get on your fundamentals, but like don't hurry anything right now. Just no.
That would be the idea. I mean, that it's the first part of this moon. I mean, we didn't So the cosmology of the chinos, or the calendar, basically suggested that, like, on Thursday, it was just Thursday. On Thursday, heaven and earth got back together. They took time apart, right, and they separated. But that in the first part of spring was just mostly theoretical. Well, we know things are going to turn around. We know things are going to get back. They're talking. Heaven and earth are talking. Right, so we know that they have something scheduled, and like Thursday was that schedule where they actually came back together, and so now the sort of exploration of potential can start to gain traction. But this idea is like, early spring, nothing's really even, the blossoms are still under the ground, but they're coming and everybody knows it, and so you shouldn't really make too many assumptions. And avoid any kind of pretense that the conduct of the first moon is to be gentle, is to be considerate, is to be forgiving, So even in a metal tiger space, get it off your chest. Get it off your chest. Like, whatever it is that you have a lot of anxiousness about, please, like, vent it. But do so with the mind that you are going to forgive. Close the circle on that. Or if there are things that need to be gone, like, let them go. Like, cut out the dead weight. I mean, these are things that we should have been doing already, but this could be, one of the places where it's really about, again, examining our resonance with things and whether or not we actually really resonate with something, or if we're just doing it for some sort of ulterior motive.
It's funny you say, okay, I'm doing all these like short little courses on like tool building. And one of them is kind of mediation communication techniques. And I'm trying to find a new word for it because a lot of people call it nonviolent communication. But I don't like that, and not because of the use of the word violence, but because of the fact that we feel that the only time to use that type of communication is when there's potential for violence. But I think a lot of it does have to do with, like, no, you're allowed to get things off your chest. And I mean, things all the time. I mean, I can be a complete asshole. I mean, if you listen to the way that I speak on a normal basis, you'd always be like, you do not believe in nonviolent communication, because I'm always like, hit that motherfucker. That dude needs to get his ass. It's like, I'm just one of those people where it's like, that guy
you need to take
needs
that boy out back,
punched in the face. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of times, but I say this from the perspective of a person that I'm in control of. Like, I do feel that most of us are shitty people, or our entitlement is due to the fact that someone didn't punch you in the face when you were 3, and then your whole entire life people were saying no one's allowed to punch you in the face. And I never grew up that way. I just grew up being like, respect and courtesy is king. If not, like, that kid over there might punch you in the face. So, you know what I mean? It's sort of one of those things. It's always a metaphorical punch in the face, though, for me. I don't really want anyone to get whacked, especially when we're older, right? But,
yeah.
Hey.
I mean, a slap in the face is actually, it's a wake-up call.
It's medicine. Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a medicine.
It's medicine.
And, like, these are the times where we should be open to receiving that.
Yeah.
Because if we face these setbacks early on, that's a great thing than facing the setback in, Dragon.
Yeah.
Where, like,
are we heading into Dragon?
No, that'll be in the third moon. So that's in April. But let's see, February to March to April. April to May would be Dragon, the 15th to the 15th, and then May to June, 15th to the 15th would be Snake. Okay. So there's a little bit of riskiness going on here, because like it's 2 metal moons and then followed by 2 water moons. So it becomes pretty dramatic. This sense of grievance, can actually build momentum and cause, a larger sense of strife. Yeah. But it's really important, very important. We're in an ox year. So, like, even though everybody wants to be a race car, like, you have to actually take the pace of the ox, which is this kind of slow and steady, almost methodical sense of devotion. And so right now in the first moon, it's more about like uncovering the integrity of our devotion. If we're not quite 100% there, or maybe we need to be tested in that way to kind of understand where our commitments lie, what really matters to us. It's a process, spring should be lots of opportunity for things to express and die out, Like you're basically, like octopus eggs, right? 10,000 of them, so you get like, maybe 100, like maybe, or even 50, to actually make it to maturity. So that's always kind of the nature of spring, is to put out a lot of potential, and only a few things actually rise to the surface. In a metal tiger moon, we're not looking at like 10,000. We're really trying to work very urgent, with conscientious, with thoroughness, with precision on just a handful of things, and to be really invested. Passionately invested in those things. So if you're not really feeling a kind of passionate investment, I'm not really a huge advocate of passion, in the cycle of time. This is basically where it should be at. You're trying to take passion into maturity. And this is where you're sort of forced to look at that. Like how much, intensity does not always equal depth.
Yeah.
So how much depth does your passion actually have? Or is it like kind of a surface level? And so being really candid with ourselves about that stuff, and not cutting corners, as you say, like really, what can you really follow through with,
This reminds me of, I love driving, right? Motorcycles, cars. And then lately I've been getting into 4x4ing. And so when you're like riding a motorcycle real fast, you can go. And I equate riding motorcycles and like driving on a track, like a race car. Because I was doing some stunt driving and stuff in Ireland. That's like boxing. Boom, boom, boom. It's fast. It's kickboxing, right?
Right.
And but we're talking about the methodical energy, because the other side, the yin to my yang is like wrestling and jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, and that's very methodical, and it's very, very kind of calm. It's kind of a lazy game, not really,
right?
Right. You need to be soft, and I equate that in my driving world to this rock crawling, because when you're going over the rocks, if you bounce just a little bit, your car could just boom go and just like bang on a, so it's like everything is so slow, and it has just enough in it, and it's cool because these slow methodical moments, that ox year is like, it's an interesting thing, because if you look down at your speedometer on a track, you could be doing 120, 130 miles an hour, but if you look down at your speedometer on a rock crawl, you might be doing 3 miles.
Right.
But it's so engaging.
But there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension.
And every line you could slide, or you could bounce, or and it could completely destroy your vehicle. And I really love those things where it's like it challenges not only your, like, jiu-jitsu's like that, wrestling's like that. Don't dive at me. You know what I mean? Like it challenges your impulse. Like you want to spring, you want to go for it, you want to just gun it and get up the thing and use momentum. But no, it's not. It's rarely going to work out. And some people are like, well, I can't. No, I know your mama said you're awesome. But like it's not about your story right now. You're going to ask yourself risk and reward. It's not about your ego and your idea of yourself. There's no truth according to you, right? And I really love that. So I love that metaphor of the ox, because it's so in line, because it's like I'm trying to get this rock crawler Jeep right now and all these things, and it's like I'm really loving that mentality, because you're out there and there's no one to help's not coming, and I really like that feeling of I need to go slow, I need to challenge myself not to go fast like on the track. I need to challenge myself to go slow and stay calm and feel pretty. It's good exercise for me personally.
Well, that's the perfect metaphor metaphor for the first moon. I mean,
And then-
really, like
and where are we heading after this? So we're Tiger Moon. We're kind of halfway through the Tiger Moon, right?
we're 10 days in.
Okay.
Yes, I mean we got through sort of the first blush of it, and
Yeah.
this weekend should calm people down.
Okay. Yeah, because we
And then
released
after-
the big event, which
Right.
thank you to everyone that
Yeah.
has purchased the Ox Year Talk.
Yeah, that was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we'll be going into more of the same with the metal rabbit. The metal rabbit, we encounter another, version of metal, which that moon will be much easier in some ways to go slow.
Okay.
But it will be much more interpersonal and more about I think the more of the emphasis on the metal rabbit moon will be the kinds of alliances that we seek to make, and the kinds of allowances that we give ourselves, the vulnerabilities and the explorations of trust, that we're going into. If you're going into, or you're in the Tiger Moon and you're thinking about alliances, you're ahead of the game. If you're because tigers don't necessarily think a lot about alliances, but if you really want to actually harness, power, the kind of power that the first moon can provide, and take it into a place of maturity, this cosmology will suggest that the only way to really do that is together. And so the only thing that you build, the only way you build anything truly lasting is together. And so if you're thinking about alliances in the first moon, that's a very good thing. In the second moon, some of those assumptions about the kinds of alliances you really want may get challenged. But I think it'll be a little bit, so in some ways it might be gentler, and in other ways it might be a little more internally grueling.
yeah.
But that kind of tension isn't going away. So I would suggest that people really take the metaphor of the slowness, of the pacing, and be honest with themselves. No hypocrisy.
Let's buried or married. What do we got?
Well, again, that's right. I was thinking about this.
Let's go through each one. I want you to say buried, married, or nothing. Buried, married, or just
for each one,
yeah,
or neutral,
or neither.
Buried, married, or neutral.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ox, go.
Well, I'll definitely say married.
Okay. Tiger.
Yeah. Tiger. No.
Okay. Rabbit.
Keep it soft. No, positive. Yeah.
Okay.
Very positive for rabbits.
Pig.
If they can go slow, I mean, they really need to go slow.
Okay.
Pig. They need to go slow. Pigs. Neutral.
Okay.
They're just settling in.
Okay. Goat.
No, all year.
Goats.
All year, yeah.
Okay.
Goats should really be careful this year. I mean, we've talked about this before, but particularly this time of year, goats should be hard to find.
Okay. Snake.
Well, I know a snake that's taking a vacation, so that's I'm going to say that's a good idea.
Okay.
But this is where they're kind of working their internal plan. Their grand plan is what's happening right now for them. So if snakes are doing that, then it's pretty positive.
Rat.
Neutral.
Rooster.
Yeah. Also, I want to say neutral, but gravitating toward positive. They have a tendency to overthink and go fast. So they should keep it. Put the clutch in.
Okay. Horse.
Definitely put the clutch in. Both horses and dogs have some advantages right now, as long as they can actually really slow down. In both cases, they want to think about alliances, particularly the dog. They want to get some idea about the kinds of people they want to surround themselves with, for this year. But in both cases, in dogs and horses, it's all theoretical. They should remember that it's all theoretical, and there's still, a lot of spring to go before they start getting comfortable.
Okay, so you did dog. Monkey.
Like every spring, monkeys should be hiding somewhere. Like they're not. Yeah, this is not monkey time.
Okay, and then dragon.
Well, dragons are just starting to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's the idea behind spring in the Chinese cosmology is that you have like several layers of emerging dragons, right? That they start, maybe at the bottom of springs and lakes, and they cause, changes in weather patterns and formations and such. Mm-hmm. So I expect for these entire 4 moons, the dragon chi will be very unpredictable.
Fun.
And so, yeah. So, I mean, as long as dragons, as we were talking about with respect to the ox year in general, can sort of keep the chi in the channels, right?
Yeah.
It's often said that tigers, the main difference between tigers and dragons is that tigers make mistakes.
Yeah.
And dragons can't be bothered to make mistakes. Mm-hmm. It seems like every mistake they made actually ends up just being like another manifestation of what they're doing, right? Mm. So like that's a kind of ingenuity there that's somewhat otherworldly. So when it comes to whether or not the tiger moon is, I mean, from a practical standpoint, don't get ahead of yourself. But dragons, and some dragons might have a tendency to do that, to kind of accelerate too fast. But they should get the point right away. Yeah. And be able to adjust.
Wow. All right.
That was it, right?
Cool. And when does this moon end?
The 15th of March. Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah. So pretty soon. So we'll be back at this talking about rabbits pretty soon. Let's take a look. March 13th, maybe? I think it's... Yes, sir. It'll be on the 13th.
That's my birthday.
That's right. So it'll be... The rabbit moon will be Matt Lucas's birthday.
Everybody, send in... you can just Venmo me. Since I can't have that big party that I know everyone's wanted to do, just Venmo me at the Matt Lucas. And I promise I will use all of that money to get some rims and get
to
my
completely
calf.
Celebrate me.
Yeah. To completely, this is my this is my year. It's all about me right now. Yeah. In my life, it's not about me to you. Please don't make your life about. Yeah. I'm gonna jump in the cold water, and
good luck with that. Yeah. Wow. I haven't done that in a long time. How is that?
It's not fun. I'm thinking about... Well, it depends on what the beach is like right now. Usually on nice days like this, it's not cool. But, it's been an interesting day of just cleaning, and,
First moon is about preparation.
Okay.
It's just all about preparation. Okay. And collecting resources, so the more that we can do that, especially attending to the home,
well,
it makes a lot of sense.
What I'm doing, oh my God, I'm upstairs right now because this downstairs is chaos right now. I've just been cutting wood down there, so it's just sawdust everywhere. And
oh wow,
and
that's fun.
But yeah, folks, I'll address if. Folks can just tune in on the Ox Year talk.
Yeah, check it out.
A lot of people that bought the talk, they're like, "Hey, what about the months? What about the months?" This is the months. We do it every month, and you guys just need to subscribe to the YouTube channel or keep checking in on the blog. I'm asking people a lot. My resolution for this year, I've now opened up enough time to keep engaging with people, like answer their comments and get in the community threads and all that other stuff. So that's what all this is about. So my work right now, even though I just said it's all about me, it's actually about me engaging with everyone. And so that's what it's all about. Rabbit Moon is when I'll start pumping. We're going to have you give away a reading, and then I'm going to give away a private session.
Yeah, by then too, like I'm gonna get some help, and so by then too, I'm gonna start putting out more of the cosmology
Cool.
behind. Yeah, so there'd be good timing actually to submit, to do a free reading, to do that kind of thing, because then I can give kind of a little bit more of a breakdown, and maybe even doing a short video on like, what is the Doshu? Like, why do personal fate calculation, and what does that actually mean, really?
I'm feeling good about the way people have been sharing, especially like our talks and like the Total BS site and all these other things, because this thing, it's been very beneficial for me and you, and
yeah, it's been
building,
great, so fun, yeah.
And I'm hoping that like the Total BS and the way people are sharing and all this other stuff, I mean, that's the only way that the small businesses can really work. And
using the platforms, no, we've talked about that, like the kind of interconnectedness and being able to use the platforms in order to actually engage one another. It seems like the whole models themselves are being somewhat the models themselves are being explored in terms of like what they can actually do, and being like very realistic with these things, because it used to be just that it's a kind of privilege. It used to be like a major privilege just to be able to have these kinds of interactions, right? And it still kind of is. I mean, obviously is. If you're looking at the totality of human life, most people in the world don't get to do this kind of stuff, where it can be a little bit more, localized and inclusive just naturally by the fact that it's in this way. You still live in a capitalist society. You have to work with these conventions. The conventions themselves can be open for challenge, but you need to have resources in order to challenge the conventions. Like you need to actually kind of start with where you're at, and like to be able to support artists. To me, in my interpretation of the understanding of art, has a lot to do with just being able to support voices.
Yeah, I really like the idea of, Roaring Twenties. The Prohibition. It brought forth the speakeasy, and whenever there is some sort of challenge, there's the pushback, and there's the kind of revolutionary mind, which is the spring forward. But then there's just the slow underground movements that actually change the way that we can actually view the world, or bad, or whether it's bad or good, or moving us towards, but it's always moving us towards the next thing. I've been really thinking about this, and I have some really fun talks that are coming up, because we've been talking about just the fundamentals, the ox. You plant the tree, plow the field. You're not trying to control what's going to grow. You just want to make sure that you've done the work to nourish the best ground to grow the best tree. And so I'm realizing that we're a lot of like waxing on philosophical people. So I'm trying to find people that aren't in the city. So I'm going to have Brianne on here. I think I told you this. And we're literally going to just talk to her about what it's like to grow a tree, because that's her job. She grows trees.
She tends to trees. Big industry. For sure.
And like we sit around and we talk about this stuff, but it's like, no, let's talk to someone that's actually done it. Like, because these metaphors come from people that actually did it. Right? Yeah. And
there's a lot of agricultural metaphors in all of Chinese thought. It's like, because to be honest, like without agriculture, without these, and this is something that the ox actually represents, is this sort of foundation of culture that comes from that sort of steady presence and sense of steady commitment and dedication and hard work just for the sake of hard work, without necessarily thinking about the reward, just putting the day in, day out. That is sort of indicative of agriculture itself. And without agriculture, there's no culture,
right?
Like that we know of, like there's definitely many other human cultures that have existed, but the ones that we're most familiar with are all directly sitting on the backs of the ox, which is a representative of agriculture. So using the agricultural metaphors is all throughout, Chinese cosmological thinking, specifically as an homage to this notion of the stability of agriculture itself. I mean, the agriculture in relationship to the ox and Confucian culture is like, it's like hand in glove.
It's interesting to think about, like, agriculture is what sort of made the city center possible.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I mean? And so it's like us as living in the city center, we should hopefully, it's like we can acknowledge the fact that I'm always going on and on and on about how, we think celebrities and stuff are important, but they have the voices. So it's kind of like with this whole thing with Daniel Wu and all those guys this month, where they brought all that awareness to something that Daniel and I have been talking about for, I put out that situational mindfulness course because of all of the violence and stuff that was going on towards the Asian community. And then finally he just spoke up, like got him and two of his friends. And next thing you know, it's a huge movement. So they have the city center voice, but then agriculture is what brings in the supplies for that, for the art and everything like that. So it's like
that's right.
So they do feed each other. There's not a bad or good there. It's like they're literally helping each other survive.
It's only that in this particular year, what has the chi, what is the constancy, is the consistency, is that sense of devotion and dedication without reward. Know your farmer movement. Like, get on it. This would be a good year to know your farmer. This is sort of speculative, but if we're thinking about like the limitations of our excess, like, and how those excesses last year and the way in which we conduct ourselves nationwide, that we get fruit from another country, and sent in, like, all these different ways that we may need to pare back our luxuries, is some of the things that we should be thinking about in this first moon. Is that, like, be prepared, to have things, because if you're not being diligent, if you're not being sort of on top of these details in the kind of a slow way, and you're kind of lazy and you just want everything to go back to normal, lazy is my teacher's word, then you might be, this might be a very anxious time. We need to really all just be here in this place and not spend so much time thinking about the next time we get to be on a plane. Be happy where you are, because if you're thinking about, like, spending half your time someplace else, that might be a luxury that we don't necessarily get to do as much. Really pare it back even more, but if you're still living in a place where, in a kind of a dream world where you feel like you deserve to have things to go back to normal, like, you might be working with a pretense that's only going to increase your anxiety, and it's only going to make you upset. So, like, that kind of, like, get real with yourself is, I think, really important.
To bright side limitation, I would hope as an artist that most people, we should embrace it in the way that limitation is what builds creativity. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because Metal Ox Chi actually, the genius of this year, and I've written about this elsewhere, is pressure, is activated through pressure, right? So we're under that kind of sense of restriction. We have to, we have to actually come up with things. We have to actually be ingenious. We actually have to, necessity is the mother of invention. So it gives us a lot of opportunity to be under pressure and to actually, bring forward things that work for everyone, right? So, like, this is what some of the best movements, if we want to think about, like, some of the best social movements we've ever seen, or the most impactful social movements we've ever seen in the civil rights era in the 60s, started in a Metal Ox year under this sense of pressure, where we really do need to band together and motivate and talk about things that are real, that are actually impacting people's lives in this kind of, like, very fundamental and very tangible way that should be relatable to everyone. And so, like, being able to get to that place where we have that sense of realness with one another maybe requires a little bit of, like, still kind of stripping away the things that can be distracting. Like, what does that really matter? I think the listeners of whoever's listening to this by now will really like the new communication course that's going to go up on the site. Me and one of my buddies he works gangs, and he's a missing persons guy, and a lot of the we were talking about what it was like, because I've done a lot of mediations, and what it's like to be in that mediation role, but against things where there's real consequence. Like, if how do I talk to people? How do I understand that in a world where there are two sides or many more, like, how do we create an environment where there is no winner, right? How do you, because because the idea is if I can show that wherever this side's going, this side's coming too, and we're all going to benefit, right? That's the key. But if they're like, we just want whatever this side doesn't want, you could literally be like, well, then they want food, and you'd be like, then we don't want food, you know what I mean? Or, or we want all of their food, and then we want them to die to where their bodies can rot in our rivers, and then we'll all die of some weird septic thing. How do you sit in a room where these people are here, and you're in the middle? And how do I go over to them, hear them, let them know that I hear them, let them know that I get it? And then, but how do I do that without letting this side feel that now we're ganging up on them?
Because you're basically appealing to this kind of like underlying humanitarian. So I might be wash with anger to the point where like I have all these kind of negative thoughts, but like I still have some basis of my own humanity that tells me I don't really want to do that. I'm actually in the room. Ming used to talk about like how he would do consultations for couples that were like having difficulty, and of course he's a pig, he would say, like they would talk about how much they hate each other, and he's like, no, you don't.
You don't hate each other. Yeah,
you don't hate each other. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in this room.
One of the feelings of this ox is we're going to go slow enough to where all beings, not all beings, but like that's too idealistic, but to where things can actually integrate and actually start, go slow enough to where we can integrate.
And I think that there's a chance for kind of restoration, that can come out of that process. If we have the capacity as a culture of human beings to recognize our relatedness within the ecosystem, like actual, just how is it working? Then if we can have that kind of dialogue in a substantive way without outsourcing the meaning of it, but to actually just be in the meaning of, take the message that's happening right here, instead of, having this tendency to outsource it. It means that your motives are, if you're outsourcing, if you're externalizing, and just casting aspersions and doubts to what the actual message is that you're receiving, that means you already have a tendency to outsource, and also you're hiding all of your hypocrisy in your excuses, and so you're only doing damage. You're only doing damage to yourself, to everyone around you, to the ecosystem itself. You only increase the intensity of the discord. That's all you're doing. You may perceive yourself as actually being in a place of victory, but there's no victories really to be had in the first moon. So if you actually are looking for victory in the first moon, you're already lost on a tangent. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So
it's great to be here.
So anyone that is listening, go onto the site. You can sign up for the freemium. You can get this stuff, or just check in with the blog. I would love it if people would subscribe to the channel or the Instagram, Scott's Instagram. Subscribe to this stuff, because the thing is, the numbers do help. I'm learning about these things.
The
numbers help.
They really do. So
that's,
be a number.
Yeah. Enjoy. Just
enjoy. Be a number. Embrace the algorithm.
Thank you for listening. Go on, take some courses. Thank you for supporting us. Share this work, and thank you guys. You can find me at Total BS Wellness on YouTube, Total BS Wellness on Instagram, or you can go to totalbswellness.com. Always keep in touch with us. Thank you very much.